What if the stars who made you laugh the most were hiding the darkest secrets? The 1970s gave us some of the most unforgettable sitcoms, but behind the scenes, life wasn't always as cheerful as it seemed. What shocking truths were kept from the public? The sitcom stars of the 1970s became legends, bringing humor and joy into homes across America. But what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling? While some basked in fame, others faced struggles that would eventually overshadow their success. Scandals, betrayals, and heartbreaking tragedies. Hollywood has kept many of these stories buried for decades. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the shocking truths about 1970s sitcom stars. Some of these revelations will change the way you see your favorite actors forever. Let's dive in. Harry Morgan. Harry Morgan was a respected actor with a long and successful career, best known for his role as Colonel Sherman T. Potter on MASH. He had built a reputation as a beloved television figure, playing wise and authoritative characters. But in the 1990s, long after his Hollywood prime, he made headlines for an entirely different reason, one that shocked his fans. In 1996, police responded to a disturbance at Morgan's home. When they arrived, they found his wife injured, with bruises and a cut near her eye. Reports later revealed that the couple had been arguing earlier in the evening, and the situation had escalated once they returned home. Morgan, who was 81 at the time, was arrested and charged with domestic violence. Facing a serious legal battle, he agreed to complete a domestic violence diversion program. As a result, the charge was eventually dropped. While the incident didn't completely overshadow his legacy, it was a stark contrast to the kind and gentle characters he was known for playing on screen. Morgan passed away in 2011 at the age of 96. Despite his long and accomplished career, the controversy near the end of his life remains a reminder that even the most admired public figures can have personal struggles behind closed doors. Doris Day. Doris Day was one of the biggest stars of her era, transitioning from Hollywood films to television with The Doris Day Show in the late 1960s. Known for her wholesome image and charm, she seemed to have it all. But behind the scenes, she was dealing with a shocking betrayal that changed the course of her career. After the sudden passing of her husband, who had also managed her finances, Day discovered something unbelievable. She had been signed to a television contract without her knowledge. She had no say in the decision, yet she was now legally obligated to star in a sitcom she never agreed to do. With little financial security left, she had no choice but to follow through with the project. As if being forced into an unwanted job wasn't enough, she soon learned that much of her fortune had been mismanaged and squandered by the very people she had trusted. Determined to take control of her situation, she sued her late husband's business associate and eventually won a large settlement. However, the money she recovered was only a fraction of what she had lost. After the Doris Day Show ended in the early 1970s, she stepped away from acting altogether, choosing a quieter life away from Hollywood. She lived out her later years focusing on animal rights advocacy, far removed from the industry that had both made her famous and taken advantage of her. Doris Day passed away in 2019 at the age of 97. Her story serves as a reminder that even the most successful stars can be manipulated. And sometimes, the career the public sees is not the one they want. Redd Foxx. Redd Foxx was a trailblazing comedian who found mainstream success as the star of Sanford and Son. His quick wit and sharp comedic timing made him a fan favorite, and for a time, he was one of the highest-paid actors on television. But despite earning a fortune, financial mismanagement and legal troubles led to a devastating downfall. At the height of his success, Foxx was making tens of thousands of dollars per episode, along with a significant share of the show's profits. However, his lavish spending habits and poor financial planning quickly drained his wealth. By the early 1980s, he was in deep financial trouble and declared bankruptcy. The situation only worsened when the IRS came after him for unpaid taxes, seizing his assets, including a valuable jewelry collection. Even after returning to television in the late 1980s with the royal family, his financial struggles never fully went away. In 1991, while working on the set of The Royal Family, Foxx suffered a fatal heart attack. At the time of his passing, he still owed millions in unpaid taxes. His life story is a tragic example of how even the biggest stars can face financial ruin if they're not careful with their earnings. Mary Tyler Moore. Mary Tyler Moore was one of the most beloved television stars of her time, known for her charm, talent, and groundbreaking role on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Her career flourished, and she became an icon of independent women on television. But while she projected confidence and strength on screen, she was privately dealing with a serious health condition that she kept hidden for years. At just 33 years old, Moore was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, a condition that required constant monitoring and insulin injections. She continued working, never letting her illness show, but over time, diabetes took a toll on her health. As she grew older, complications began to affect her vision, making simple tasks like walking across a room or climbing stairs increasingly difficult. By the time of a Mary Tyler Moore Show cast reunion in 2013, her vision loss had become severe. She could no longer move around independently and had to remain seated while others came to her. Despite these challenges, she never publicly spoke about how much the disease had affected her daily life. Moore passed away in 2017, but her struggle with diabetes had impacted her for decades. Her story is a reminder that even those who seem to have everything, a successful career, wealth, and admiration, can face silent battles that the public never sees. Danny Bonaduce. Danny Bonaduce became famous at a young age as the wisecracking bass player on The Partridge Family. On screen, he was a confident and mischievous character, but behind the scenes, his life was spiraling out of control. As soon as the show ended, he found himself lost, struggling with addiction, homelessness, and run-ins with the law. By the time he was a teenager, Bonaduce had moved out of his family home and was living in his car. Without a stable income or support system, he turned to substance abuse, which only worsened his situation. For a period, he survived by taking photos with tourists outside Hollywood landmarks, relying on his former fame just to get by. His troubles escalated in the early 1990s when he was arrested for assault and robbery. Although he avoided a long prison sentence, the incident further damaged his already struggling reputation. Over the years, he attempted to turn his life around, taking on various television and radio jobs. However, his battles continued to affect him. Despite multiple struggles, Bonaduce managed to rebuild parts of his career, eventually becoming a radio host and television personality. However, his story remains a stark example of how early fame can lead to a difficult and often painful road to adulthood. Jeff Conaway. Jeff Conaway became a familiar face in the late 1970s with his role as Bobby Wheeler on Taxi and his performance as Kinnicky in Grease. With his good looks and charm, he seemed destined for a long and successful career. But behind the scenes, he was battling a personal struggle that would ultimately overshadow his achievements. While Taxi made him a household name, Conaway felt creatively unfulfilled and frustrated with his character's lack of development. However, his departure from the show wasn't entirely by choice. His growing issues with substance abuse reportedly led to missed tapings and erratic behavior, and he was eventually let go. After leaving Taxi, Conaway took on various roles in TV and film, but none reached the success of his earlier projects. His struggles with addiction worsened over the years, leading to multiple rehab stays. He made a brief return to the spotlight in the 2000s by appearing on reality shows focused on weight loss and addiction recovery. However, despite seeking treatment, he continued to relapse. In 2010, Conaway suffered a serious fall that left him with multiple injuries, including a broken hip and a brain hemorrhage. While recovering, he became dependent on pain medication, which only worsened his battle with addiction. In May 2011, at the age of 60, Jeff Conaway passed away due to complications from a medication overdose. His tragic story serves as a stark reminder of how fame and addiction often go hand in hand, and how even the most promising careers can be derailed by personal demons. Susan Dey. Susan Dey rose to fame in the early 1970s as Lori Partridge on The Partridge Family. With her fresh-faced beauty and talent, she became a teen idol almost overnight. But behind the scenes, the pressures of fame took a serious toll on her health and well-being. Determined to maintain a certain image, Dey developed an unhealthy relationship with food. she became obsessed with staying thin and severely restricted her diet. At one point, she consumed almost nothing but carrots, which eventually caused her skin to take on an orange tint. Her struggle with disordered eating went unnoticed for years, as she kept up the appearance of being happy and healthy. As she grew older, she also battled issues with alcohol. While she eventually sought help and found sobriety, her past struggles were difficult to leave behind. When details of her personal life were made public in the 1990s, she was upset that something so private had been exposed. Despite these challenges, Day continued to have a successful acting career, later earning Emmy nominations for her work on LA Law. However, she chose to step away from the spotlight in the early 2000s, preferring a more private life. Her story is a reminder that even those who seem to have it all, fame, beauty, and success, can be silently battling personal demons. Erin Moran. Erin Moran became a star in the 1970s as the lovable Joni Cunningham on Happy Days. Audiences watched her grow up on screen, and for a while, she seemed to be on the path to a long and successful career. But once the show ended, her life took a much darker turn. Despite her fame, Moran struggled to find steady work after Happy Days. Aside from a few guest appearances on shows like Murder, She Wrote, and The Love Boat, her acting opportunities dwindled. By the 1990s, she had all but disappeared from Hollywood. Financial troubles hit hard in 2010 when she lost her home to foreclosure. With nowhere else to go, she and her husband moved in with his mother in a trailer park. But even that living situation didn't last. After a series of personal issues, they were forced to leave, leaving Moran essentially homeless. For a time, she relied on money from a legal settlement after Happy Days actors sued for unpaid royalties. But the financial relief was short-lived. In 2016, Moran was diagnosed with a severe form of cancer. Within months, the disease had progressed to the point where she could no longer speak. Robin Williams. Robin Williams captivated audiences in the late 1970s with his wildly energetic and unpredictable performance as Mork on Mork and Mindy. His rapid-fire humor and improvisational genius made him an instant star. But beneath his comedic brilliance, he was battling personal struggles that few knew about at the time. During his rise to fame, Williams developed a heavy dependence on substances, particularly cocaine. Unlike most users, who became hyperactive under its influence, he claimed it had the opposite effect on him, making him feel calmer. He eventually walked away from drug use in the early 1980s after a close friend's tragic overdose, but his battles with addiction were far from over. As his career skyrocketed, his behavior on set often blurred the line between comedy and inappropriate actions. He had a habit of engaging in overly physical humor, sometimes making castmates uncomfortable. In later years, details emerged about his behind-the-scenes antics, revealing behavior that might not have been acceptable under today's standards. Though he remained a beloved figure, Williams faced emotional struggles that worsened as he aged. His later years were marked by increasing health issues, and he was eventually diagnosed with a neurological disorder. The weight of these challenges became too much to bear, and in 2014, he tragically passed away. His life was a mix of extraordinary talent and deep personal pain. While the world remembers him for his humor and kindness, his struggles remind us that even the most joyful personalities can carry unseen burdens. Fred Berry. Fred Berry became a household name in the 1970s thanks to his role as the fun-loving, beret-wearing character on What's Happening. His energetic dance moves and infectious personality made him a fan favorite. But while audiences loved him for his humor, Berry struggled with the pressures of fame behind the scenes. At the peak of his career, he was earning a fortune, but the sudden success brought overwhelming stress. Unable to cope, he turned to drugs and alcohol, which led to a downward spiral that lasted for years. His struggles with substance abuse took a heavy toll, leading to multiple attempts to end his life. By the mid-1980s, Berry decided to get sober, and he later became a Christian minister, hoping to turn his life around. However, his personal life remained complicated. He was married 6 times to 4 different women, with some relationships ending on bitter terms. Despite his efforts to reinvent himself, Barry could never fully escape the shadow of his most famous role. Typecast and struggling to find new opportunities, he often found himself playing variations of the same character that made him famous. In 2003, at the age of 52, Fred Barry passed away. His story is a cautionary tale of how sudden fame, financial success, and personal struggles can create a destructive path, even for those who seem to have it all. David Cassidy. In the 1970s, David Cassidy was the ultimate teen heartthrob. As the star of the Partridge Family, he had millions of fans, chart-topping music, and a seemingly perfect life. But behind the charming smile and the catchy songs, Cassidy was battling a serious addiction that would follow him for decades. His struggles became public in 2008, when he admitted to having a long-term drinking problem at a charity event. While the revelation shocked many, it was only the beginning of his troubles. 2 years later, he was arrested for driving under the influence in Florida, which resulted in probation and a suspended license. Over the next few years, his troubles with alcohol continued, leading to multiple DUI arrests and court-ordered rehab. Despite claims of sobriety, his public appearances raised concerns about his health. In 2017, during a performance, he nearly fell off the stage, sparking speculation about his condition. While he denied that alcohol was to blame, it soon became clear that he was facing serious health issues. Later that year, he was hospitalized with organ failure. Before his passing, he acknowledged that his struggles with alcohol had taken a toll on his life. David Cassidy passed away in November 2017 from liver and kidney failure at the age of 67. His story remains a tragic reminder of how addiction can overshadow even the brightest careers. Cindy Williams. Cindy Williams became a household name in the 1970s, starring as Shirley Feeney in the hit sitcom Laverne and Shirley. Her chemistry with co-star Penny Marshall was a major reason for the show's success, and together, they helped make it one of the most popular sitcoms of its time. But behind the scenes, Williams' time on the show came to an abrupt and unexpected end. In 1982, Williams learned that she was expecting her first child. Initially, the producers seemed supportive, offering to adjust her filming schedule and even incorporating her pregnancy into the storyline. However, things soon took a different turn. When she requested accommodations to balance work and her health, she claimed that the producers refused to pay her for the episodes she would miss. Feeling pushed out of the series, Williams ultimately left the show before the 8th season was completed. She later took legal action against the studio, and while the lawsuit was settled quietly, she never returned to Laverne and Shirley. Although she continued acting in the years that followed, her departure from the sitcom remained one of the biggest controversies of her career. What was supposed to be a joyful moment in her personal life turned into a difficult battle over fairness and respect in the industry. Williams' story is a reminder of how, even in Hollywood, personal milestones can sometimes be met with unexpected challenges rather than celebration. Which of these stories surprised you the most? The stars of 1970s sitcoms made us laugh, but their real lives were often filled with struggles no one saw coming. Hollywood may try to bury the past, but the truth always finds a way out. If you want more shocking stories from Hollywood's golden years, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what we uncover next.